My sister attempted to steal my inheritance. The lawyer's words changed everything. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I'm Lynn. I've always been the quiet one in my family. I didn't argue much, didn't ask for favors, and never expected anything extra. When my father passed away, I believed the sadness would bring my sister Mave and me closer. I was wrong. At the will reading, we sat across from each other in a small office. I was still trying to process the loss. Mave wasn't crying. She kept glancing at me, not with grief, but with focus. That made me uncomfortable, though I couldn't explain why. The lawyer began reading the documents. As he spoke, Mave's posture changed. She looked confident, almost proud. I felt nervous for no reason I could name. Then she interrupted, saying our father had promised her everything privately. Her voice was calm, rehearsed. I was shocked. Our dad never said anything like that to me. We had talked many times about fairness and trust. I stayed silent, thinking the truth would come out on its own. The lawyer paused and asked Mave to repeat what she said. Then he asked for the papers she brought. As he reviewed them, his expression changed. He stopped the meeting and asked us to wait. In that moment, I realized this was no misunderstanding. Mave wasn't confused or emotional. She was trying to take what wasn't hers. I felt hurt, but also clear-headed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just waited, because something told me the truth was about to surface. And when the lawyer returned, everything in that room shifted. After the burial, everything changed quietly. Mave stepped into a new role without asking anyone. She spoke with confidence, answered questions meant for both of us, and acted like she had taken charge of the family overnight. People listened. I noticed it, but I didn't challenge her. I was still trying to breathe through the loss. Conversations began shifting around me. When relatives gathered, their tone felt careful, guarded. I'd walk into a room and feel sentences end too fast. Smiles looked forced. No one explained anything directly, but something was clearly wrong. Later, I learned Mave had been speaking for me when I wasn't there. She told others I was fragile, that grief had clouded my judgment. She suggested I couldn't make clear decisions, especially about property or finances. She framed it as concern, but it was calculated. Each comment pushed doubt into places where trust used to live. Aunt Rhea was the hardest change. She used to call me every week. Suddenly, my messages went unanswered. When I visited, she kept her distance, polite but distant, like I had disappointed her without knowing how. Meals felt stiff. Chairs stayed farther apart. Laughter disappeared. I started questioning myself. Maybe I looked unstable. Maybe my silence made me seem incapable. I wondered if staying calm had made others believe I was weak. That thought kept me awake at night. Mave, meanwhile, stayed close to everyone else. She offered help, gave opinions, handled details. She made it seem natural, like she was protecting the family from chaos. No one saw what was happening beneath the surface. What I didn't realize then was that this wasn't random. This wasn't grief talking. It was preparation. She was shaping a story where I slowly vanished, replaced by her version of who deserved control. And by the time I sensed the danger, the damage was already spreading. The appointment day arrived faster than I expected. The office smelled of paper and polish, too clean for how tense I felt inside. Mave walked in ahead of me, shoulders straight, steps steady, like she owned the place. She didn't look nervous. She looked prepared. She greeted the attorney by name, handed over a folder thick with pages, and sat back with a calm smile. I stayed quiet, hands folded, trying to understand what I was watching. None of those papers had ever been shown to me. I had never heard of them before that moment. When asked to explain, Mave spoke smoothly. She said our father had made private promises. According to her, He wanted her to take full control and had said it more than once. No witnesses, no notes, just words she claimed were spoken behind closed doors. The way she said it made it sound unquestionable. Heat rushed to my face. I felt exposed, like I had walked into a room without knowing the rules. I wondered if everyone there thought I was naive for not knowing about these arrangements. My chest tightened. I didn't interrupt. I couldn't. The attorney listened carefully, flipping through each page without reacting. The silence stretched. Mave's confidence didn't fade. If anything, she leaned back further, as if the outcome was already decided. Then he stopped turning pages. He looked up, not at me, but directly at her. His tone stayed even as he asked a single question, short, clear, impossible to dodge. The room shifted instantly. Mae's expression froze, just for a second, but that second mattered. She hesitated before answering. Her voice lost its smooth edge. That pause told me more than any speech could. Something wasn't right, and for the first time since entering that office, I felt the balance tilt. I didn't feel relief yet. I felt something sharper, alertness. Whatever game had been set in motion was no longer under her control. And whatever came next would expose far more than she intended. He asked me to step outside with him. The hallway felt narrow, the lights too bright. My pulse thudded in my ears as he closed the door behind us, lowering his voice. From his briefcase, he removed several pages and laid them flat between us. He pointed, not accusing, just precise. Lines meant to be identical were not. Curves shifted. Pressure changed. Ink sat differently on the paper. Then he showed dates that jumped backward instead of forward, timelines that could not exist together. Nothing about it aligned. I stared, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. These weren't harmless mistakes. They weren't errors made in stress or sorrow. They were deliberate changes. Someone had taken originals and reshaped them to fit a story. He didn't need to say her name. I already knew. A cold understanding settled in. This wasn't about misunderstanding or memory. It wasn't about feeling left out or afraid. This was intention. Planning. Execution. The person I grew up with had crossed a line most people never even approach. My chest tightened, but tears didn't come. The sadness I'd been carrying for weeks hardened into something solid. Clear. Steady. I felt my spine straighten without effort. He explained the seriousness calmly, outlining consequences without drama. His voice stayed professional, but his eyes held concern, not pity, concern. He asked how I wanted to proceed. In that moment, I thought about every quiet choice I'd made to keep peace. Every time I stayed back so others could move forward. That version of me was gone. I told him to continue. To document everything. To let the process unfold exactly as it should. No shortcuts. No mercy disguised as kindness. When we re-entered the room, I looked at my sister differently. Not with anger, not with disbelief. With certainty. Whatever bond we once had was already broken, by her hand, not mine. Grief still lived in me, but it no longer guided me. Purpose did. And I understood then that standing firm was not cruelty, it was survival. While waiting, memory surfaced without warning. Long evenings from years ago returned to me clearly. My father, Cal, used to sit at the kitchen table after everyone else slept. Paper spread out, lamp on low, voice calm. He spoke slowly, carefully, as if every sentence mattered. He once asked me to give my word. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Just a quiet request. He said what he had built came from sacrifice, patience, and discipline. He wanted it handled with care. He believed I understood that. He said some people see value as something to grab, not guard. He never needed to explain who he meant. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I thought those talks were just habits of someone planning ahead. Standing there now, I realized those moments were trust being placed gently, deliberately. He chose me because he believed I wouldn't rush, wouldn't bend, wouldn't misuse what wasn't meant for impulse. That realization anchored me. Fear loosened its grip. Doubt faded. I understood why I felt calm despite the tension around me. I wasn't fighting for gain. I was holding a responsibility already given. When the attorney returned, he asked again how I wanted to move forward. His tone suggested caution, maybe even an easy exit if I wanted peace over clarity. I shook my head. I told him I didn't want silence or compromise. I wanted facts. I wanted every detail examined, every inconsistency addressed. I said discomfort didn't scare me, and fallout wouldn't change my position. That decision didn't come from anger. It came from loyalty, to a man who trusted quietly and expected strength without noise. Whatever followed would not be chosen for comfort. It would be chosen because it was right. As I spoke, something settled inside me. The need to step aside vanished. I wasn't pushing against anyone anymore. I was standing exactly where I had always been meant to stand, protecting what was never mine to misuse, only to defend. As the lawyer began checking her claims, Mave's calm facade cracked. At first, it was subtle, her fingers trembled, her eyes darted toward the door as if seeking escape. Then her voice wavered when she tried to explain a discrepancy. The confident tone vanished. She turned to me abruptly, pointing fingers and shouting accusations I hadn't expected. She claimed I was scheming behind the scenes, manipulating situations to make her look bad. Her words were sharp, frantic, almost desperate, but no one else moved. They watched, stunned. Tears suddenly appeared, unconvincing and sudden, as if meant to distract rather than express sorrow. Her chest heaved, and for a moment, the mask of composure she had worn for weeks fell completely. No rehearsed lines. No carefully measured gestures. Just raw panic, anger, and frustration. Then came the threats. Her voice rose further, trembling with emotion. "If I don't get this, I will ruin everything," she spat, looking at everyone in the room. "I will destroy the family." She repeated it, louder each time, as if saying it out loud might force reality to obey. The relatives and the lawyer exchanged glances, uncertainty turning into alarm. The carefully constructed image she had shown for weeks, the responsible, composed sibling, was gone. What remained was volatile and uncontrolled. I stayed still, watching the shift. No need for words. The mask she had built, the confidence she wielded like armor, now lay in pieces on the floor. People who had been hesitant to intervene now saw her as she truly was. In that moment, the room no longer belonged to her. Her panic and aggression had revealed the truth everyone had been too polite to speak. Mave was not the sister they thought they knew. She was the storm hidden behind the calm. Grant straightened in his chair, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Every eye in the room turned toward him as he spoke slowly, deliberately, leaving no room to misinterpret. "I cannot move forward with documents that are not legitimate," he said firmly. "And you need to know, your father planned for this possibility." The weight of his words settled over everyone like a heavy curtain. Conversations halted mid-thought. Chairs creaked as people shifted uncomfortably. Mave froze, her confident posture collapsing instantly. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Color drained from her face, leaving a ghostly pallor that none of us had ever seen before. I felt a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. Relief that the truth had a voice in the room. Disbelief that it had taken so long for someone else to speak it aloud. Grant's declaration was simple, but it carried the power of finality. Mave's eyes widened. For the first time, she looked unsure, vulnerable, exposed. She tried to speak, to argue, but her voice caught, stammering in the sudden silence. The carefully constructed image of certainty crumbled before us all. The rest of the family shifted in their seats, finally seeing the situation clearly. The air grew heavy, tense, and charged. Every accusation, every plan she had made, seemed to shrink under the weight of the lawyer's words. In that quiet room, the balance shifted. Authority was no longer hers to claim. The truth, once hidden under layers of deception, now had the upper hand. And for the first time I understood that the fight wasn't just about papers, it was about integrity, foresight, and finally, justice. As Grant continued, he opened a section of the will no one had paid much attention to before. His finger traced a line, deliberate and slow, as he explained its meaning. "There is a condition here your father added years ago," he said. "It states that anyone who tries to manipulate or challenge the documents dishonestly will forfeit all rights completely." The room went still again, but this time for a different reason. Maeve's hands tightened into fists, her jaw stiff. Her eyes darted across the pages as if searching for a loophole, but there wasn't one. I listened, heart pounding, as he continued. The clause meant that her actions, everything she had done to alter the papers and claim the inheritance, backfired entirely. Not only was she blocked from receiving anything, but the law explicitly removed her from any share. I felt a strange, quiet triumph settle in my chest. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about what was right. The responsibility Dad had entrusted to me was now protected in every legal sense. Family members murmured among themselves, finally understanding the severity. Maeve's expression flickered between disbelief and panic. She realized she had sealed her own fate with her choices. Grant looked at me, eyes calm. "Everything now passes to you," he said, as though confirming a promise long overdue. I nodded slowly, taking in the finality of it. No more disputes. No more games. The inheritance, the legacy, and my father's trust, all of it, was mine, untouched and secured. Maeve sank into her chair, defeated not by force, but by the very scheme she had tried to use. And in that moment, I understood the full weight of what had just happened. Justice had arrived quietly, exactly as Dad had intended. After everything settled, silence fell between Mave and me. She no longer looked my way, no longer tried to speak or justify herself. The warmth we once shared was gone, replaced by a cold distance I had never imagined. Some family members approached cautiously, offering quiet apologies for believing Maeve's story or doubting me. Their voices were soft, almost hesitant, as if afraid their words might reopen old wounds. Others didn't return at all, disappearing from gatherings and conversations without explanation. I felt a mixture of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for the bond one had lost with my sister, the laughter, the shared memories, the trust that had been replaced by deception. Relief for clarity, for the fact that the truth had surfaced without me having to fight through anger or lies. In the quiet moments, I allowed myself to grieve not just Dad, but the sister I thought I had known. It was painful to accept that the person beside me in childhood had chosen a path I could never follow. Yet, alongside that grief came a deep, steady peace. I realized then that victory doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it comes softly, through patience, integrity, and faith in what is right. I hadn't retaliated with harsh words or schemes. I had simply stayed firm, letting honesty and fairness take their course. Sitting alone later that evening, I understood the weight of resilience. I had protected what mattered most, not for pride, not for gain, but because it was entrusted to me. Maeve had acted out of selfishness, but the outcome reminded me of the strength and restraint. For the first time in weeks, I breathed fully, knowing that standing still had been more powerful than any action I could have taken. The storm had passed, and what remained was truth, quiet and unshakable. The days that followed were calm but purposeful. I didn't throw a party or announce my success. Instead, I focused on practical matters, settling outstanding bills, organizing accounts, and making sure every piece of Dad's work stayed intact. Each action felt like a quiet tribute to him. I moved deliberately, keeping my routine steady. Friends who knew the full story checked in occasionally, but I didn't seek praise. The satisfaction came from order restored and from knowing that every decision I made honored the values my father had instilled in me. Maeve avoided me entirely. She wasn't angry in the usual way anymore, she was defeated, resigned, and absent from family events. Watching her withdraw, I understood that victory doesn't always come with drama. Sometimes it's subtle, invisible to anyone who isn't paying attention. I reflected on the ordeal often. Betrayal had cut deep, leaving scars, but it also revealed strength I hadn't fully recognized in myself. I had been tested, not by circumstances alone, but by someone I once trusted completely. Standing firm without retaliation felt heavier than any act of revenge, yet far more powerful. The legal battle was over, and the legacy my father left was safe. I maintained my integrity, honoring both him and myself. Each choice I made reinforced the lesson he had quietly taught me, that patience, honesty, and steadiness often outlast anger, manipulation, and deceit. In the silence of my home, I allowed a small smile, acknowledging the journey without needing anyone else's validation. The room felt lighter, the past settled, and the future open. I hadn't just survived betrayal, I had preserved dignity, truth, and everything that truly mattered. And in that quiet triumph, I understood that real power often arrives softly, without noise, yet leaves a mark that lasts forever. Do you think I did the right thing by standing my ground and not giving Mave another chance? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this.